Hey everyone. So yeah, we started a few minutes late here. I mean, actually, we're still ahead of schedule, 11 minutes before we start off the session. But the session we normally start off a little bit early live. One of our hosts was having a little bit of a technical difficulty, so I went on mute to help him get in here. So he should be joining us momentarily.
Hmm.
But Calvin,
We're
that's a
early but late. Late but
yeah, it's a
early.
pretty awesome shirt you got there. Is that a racing shirt?
This is well actually last year, 2-year old Red Bull F Formula One jacket.
Nice.
Yeah. I had the fun of being there in Monza, and I guess last year just feels like a lost year. It must have been 2019. So
Yeah,
Monza 2019. It was a lot
that's
of fun.
cool.
Turned me into a race fan. So
I've never been to a Formula One before.
it is something else. It is something else. I think like as a sport, it's cool because yeah, I guess much like any of the racing sports or things like that, it's the same players pretty much. Well, every Grand Prix, it's the same ones, right? So you really develop an affinity, and there's only 20 drivers on the track any given week. So and then there's all kinds of like back history and drama behind the
Hmm.
scenes, and something that picked up. I think a lot of the popularity of the last couple of years has been Netflix put out a sort of it's not exactly a reality show. It's almost more like a documentary or like almost like the NFL films were, to kind of give you all the stories of the drivers and the teams and the politics going on behind and maneuvering. Highly recommend the show if
That's
anyone's
kind of cool.
interested in racing.
Very cool. Well, we've got all our panelists now. Jason has joined us. So welcome aboard, Jason.
Thanks. Looks like we've already got some attendees watching us live.
We do. So for those of you that are on live with us right now, oh, and I see that Jimmy says good morning from Southern California. So, or as he says, SoCal. Probably should have just not changed his abbreviation there, but welcome, Jimmy, and welcome everybody else. So really, this session isn't scheduled to begin for about another 8 minutes yet, but it's a little bit unique. We show you the pre-call, uh, get together before we go live on this. If you haven't been on an Unplugged session before, these are rather unique in many ways beyond just that, in that there's really no PowerPoint for this. This is really, that's the part that I think all the panelists enjoy the most, is not having the PowerPoint. But hopefully you guys do too. Really what it's about is about having an open dialogue and discussion on the topic that we have out there. So we gather our panelists and we gather our topic, and we invite you to participate as well. So as we talk about the topics, or if you have questions or comments about different things, feel free to direct them via the question window. I'll also give you the option, if you want to be unmuted and be able to join in the conversation and carry in on the dialogue a bit. So it's really an interactive type experience for everyone that's on the call here. So Jason, am I leaving anything out?
No, I don't think so. I'd like to add, though, I would add that
Go ahead.
we're giving away a prize today, aren't we?
We are. We're giving away a Yeti Bluetooth microphone set. It's got the boom stand, it's got the windscreen, it's got the microphone itself, and a set of headphones that go with it too. So we'll give that away at the end of the session. So if you needed another little incentive not to drop off early, that would be that extra incentive to make sure you stick around to see if you won or not.
Nice. I need one of those to
I
get
could
this off my
scan
head.
a white for you if you want to see what a Yeti microphone looks like.
That's nice. And what's that screen called?
It's an acoustic shield, something like that.
What's your microphone look like, Johnny Ma?
It comes off my laptop.
Sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I've never been a dedicated microphone person, so I've always just kind of hung out.
His HP picked up pretty good. I've recorded several of our how-to videos, marketing videos using that microphone before I started using this one. This one that I have in my, what's the name brand of it? VXI. So there was a snowstorm in Atlanta about 5-6 years ago. Ray, when was that? We were supposed to have our,
Yeah, maybe 6 years ago, maybe
and
even 7.
we got stuck at the office because we were waiting for the team to come into Atlanta. It was more than that, wasn't it? Because that was our main office, and Chicago is more or less our main office in Palatine now. But we were stuck. We canceled our sales kickoff, and some people turned around. Some people got stuck at the airport, and it was an ice storm that happened really fast. And I ended up leaving the office close to midnight that night, and I have a 4-wheel drive truck. I just couldn't get out on the roads because they were clogged. And I picked up this guy on the side of the road that was walking, and he had a backpack on. I could tell he's like walking home from being stuck. And turned out he was head of sales for this company, and he sent me a handful of these things. And it turned out to be a good product. VXI. So there's his free plug.
There you
I
go.
got him home that night.
Cool.
Yeah, you got
He
some free
walked
stuff.
10 miles home until I picked him up.
Wow. And it's still working too, right?
It is. And the snow's long melted, as we rarely get it in Atlanta. Calvin, that you were talking about it when I joined. I like your coverall pullovers jacket.
My
What is that?
jacket, yeah, my jacket. Citrix is a sponsor of the Red Bull Racing F1 team. We just recently renewed that sponsorship. Also added an MLB sponsorship. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Yeah,
So
Nice.
yeah, you'll see the well, not this logo, but the new Citrix logo. I need to get the. Someone promised me they'd get me a new Red Bull jacket.
Well, Citrix stepped up and started doing much more advertising last year. I noticed. I think anyway. Is that right? Like about
Yeah,
the time that the lockdowns had started and making, probably maybe that was awareness. I thought maybe it was about that. Was that the case or?
yeah. There was more advertising. I want to say. I mean, I think we were on ESPN and some news channels as well, maybe CNN, I think. I think we had some spots that actually showed during the NFL season as well.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
seeing it on Sunday Night Football.
yeah, exactly. I didn't actually get to see that spot, but yeah, it was cool. And then, like I said, now we had sort of the broad sponsorship with MLB, so we're actually a title sponsor for that, and getting and the cool thing with the MLB one in particular, really all the sponsorships, but MLB and with Red Bull Racing and F1 is that it's not just like a logo sponsorship, but they're actually using the technology. They're actually have been customers and have
Good.
been using it to drive some competitive advantage for them. Yeah, like if I don't know, F1 is not as big in the States as it is in Europe, but it's full of all kinds of regulations, right? Like any sport, but every year they're creating different kinds of regulations and restrictions on teams. And one of the things that they did recently was they keep reducing the number of people that you're allowed to bring to the track. And actually, I don't know if COVID with that they reduced it even further. But one of the things that enables them to do that and still be super competitive and transmit as much data and get as much feedback from the factory and their headquarters in the UK is Citrix. So they have all remote VDI instances there in the paddock and from the race side, but it effectively allows like the 60 people on site to be supported by another few hundred people back in the factory all during the race week.
That's true
Yeah,
hybrid work there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get some people in the car, you get some people on the track side, you get some people off remote.
Well, we're getting close to the start of the webinar. We like to get these things started softly, and you get to know us a little bit. This chit chat that we do is purposeful, and so we've been doing that since 11:15 Eastern time, I should say. So at this point, with just a few seconds to go, we're gonna make some introductions. We are excited to have with us our guest today, Calvin Chu with Citrix, VP of Product Management. And Calvin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I understand you're about to celebrate 17 years with Citrix.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you know that?
Yeah. Man, it only feels like, 16 and a half years.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you guys for having me and having us here to do this chat. And I really like this format. If you'd asked me to put together another PowerPoint slide, I would have said, ugh, forget it. But this is great. Yeah, so I've been with Citrix now almost 17 years in a variety of roles here, mostly related to the product team, but product marketing, product management. Most recently, my current role has me in leading the team for our virtualization solutions. So Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops, as well as the cloud platform that supports all of our cloud products. Our compliance team is part of that. And our workspace app and our client platform there. So a bunch of different components there, all sort of around that core business of the virtualization.
Nice. It's so good to have you. I see guitars hanging in the background there.
Yeah, a little collection there. This
and you
doubles
play.
as my office and my music studio. Yeah, I've been playing since I was 11. I have a bunch of other middle-aged guys in a band that before COVID we get together and play around some of the local bars and hope nobody recognizes us.
Oh, good. Good.
I have
an acoustic, and I just pick out songs by ear and just picking, when I do it. So it's an ambition of mine to take lessons and learn more chords.
Great instrument, and a lot of I know a lot of people have been trying to do that during the pandemic, right? And pick up an instrument and learn something and get better at something. And that's certainly been the case. I've had a little more time to do that since I don't have to commute anymore. I can pick up a guitar and play my way into work.
Well, so far I've only played for my dogs, and they usually howl. So, Johnny Ma.
Is it a good howl or a bad howl?
Probably on the bad side. Johnny Ma, we're happy to have you. Johnny Ma joined Liquidware when? December? What was the month you joined us?
January, yeah.
January, but he is a known in the industry. And one of the last places he worked was Alchemy, and has a lot of friends, and he's a bit of an influencer too in the industry. And he worked with me on some white papers here lately, and well, we were glad to have him join us as a SE, and I found out that he could write. So
my secret's out.
Yeah. So I've already taken advantage of him. Johnny, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I cover the Mountain States territory for Liquidware. Once again, a decade plus of virtualization experience in the consulting realm. So I've done a lot of Citrix deployments, hypervisor deployments, some storage deployments, and yeah, just here to make stuff happen, push through boundaries, and get people going.
And Alchemy is a partner of ours. Can you tell us a little bit about Alchemy, where you previously worked?
Yeah, Alchemy is a solutions advisor based all around the country, the U.S. country, and they provide services for virtualization and profile management and everything like that, including Liquidware and a whole host of others.
And including Citrix, right? So.
Yep.
Good to have him here as the voice for technology and for the technology and projects that he's worked on. And Ray, why don't you tell us the ground rules again as we get going, and a little bit more about today's topic, or I can do that part if you will.
Sure. So Today we're brought together. We're going to talk about the challenges of a hybrid workforce. Some things have been going on, but before we really dive into that discussion, I know a few people. I've seen some shout outs here. I see a good morning from Christian in Cincinnati. So we are getting started now. We've gone through introductions. We can kind of dive into that. But as we dive into the topic, if you guys have questions or comments for us, use that question window, and we'll make sure that we get your questions in. We'll also give you the opportunity, if you want, to be unmuted and join the conversation and go, be a part of what's going on and be a part of the panel if you want. So with that, we can go ahead and start talking about, what are some of these challenges that we're seeing in the hybrid workforce as we go from there. Jason, did you want to elaborate on that a little bit more, or do you want me to?
Yeah, that's a good foundation. What has been almost a year, or it's been a year and a month, I believe, as far as I know, when most of the lockdowns happened. And it's interesting to look back now on the lessons that we learned, are the lessons that we saw are helped our customers learn, and the challenges that we help them resolve together through Citrix, through Liquidware, through partners when Johnny was with a partner. And so we can talk about some of those things now. I wanted to say, we've to also introduce the relationship that we've got with Citrix, because we're proud to have Calvin here with us. We've been a Citrix Ready partner since 2009, and even in that first year of Liquidware, and Liquidware's existence, we armed Citrix reps with licenses of our Stratosphere solution to go out and assess for next generation desktops, and those would have been at the time what was about to be called Zen App and Zen Desktop, of course now virtual apps and desktops. So we've come a long way. And in 2011, because we've got a whole suite of solutions that include user environment management and application layering. Well, in 2011, we were named Citrix's Partner of the Year, so Ecosystem Partner of the Year. We're really proud of that. We've got a tall, abnormally large trophy in our Alpharetta office, and they gave us a banner over at Citrix Energy, hung it with a forklift, and so we were proud to be Partner of the Year, because that had been an esteemed award to shoot for as a vendor. And the reason why we were chosen for that was there was an application involved, but the team at Citrix chose us because we helped easily onboard users to Citrix environments. And that's, now tying it back to the pandemic and things like that, that's exactly what we helped customers do, and to rationalize the hybrid workforce. I can remember back about a year ago, a year and a month ago, we got this call from the Washington Rail Authority, Washington, D.C., and they were already a longstanding Citrix customer with a few thousand seats, but they were about to send all their admin people to work from home, and they were already a Liquidware customer as well for those Citrix seats. So we got the call, and they said, we're about to send a few thousand more people to work for home, and we're going to upsize our Citrix licenses. They work on physical desktops today. Can you help us as they log off this coming Friday, and then on Monday they'll log into their Citrix environment? And that's exactly what we were able to do. And we run across any Windows desktop. Of course, a lot of those happen to be Citrix desktops, and we enable those transitions very swiftly and seamlessly for end users. So we help them accomplish that goal by that week. And that was their users logged on at least one time. Profile Unity was the magic that made that happen, because again, it runs for any Windows desktop. And then once they'd logged off even one time, their profile, the policies that had been configured for those users, and their user authored data where they saved things were all decoupled from the physical desktops, and we were able to help them burst scale their Citrix environment on that Monday morning. So when they logged in to work from home, that transition went very smoothly. And that's the business that we've been in across all Windows desktops for years. So that is a picture of a hybrid desktop, because they knew that they wanted to also be able to go back to working in the office at some time, and being able to burst scale was an ideal thing that they were able to do. And this is an interesting area, Calvin, because when we were talking earlier this week, you said a lot of customers called you guys up to take on projects like this because they saw you as the remote access leader, right? And
Yeah.
the way to do business that way. Can you tell us about some of those experiences
Yeah.
and their thoughts?
Yeah, what's been really interesting is, with the pandemic and with events like this, and also I've had the opportunity to participate in a bunch of CIO roundtables, and actually ones that are like sponsored by other analyst community and things like that. And so they're just bringing people together, and some of them are Citrix customers, some of them are not Citrix customers, and you know the conversations have kind of invariably went. You could sort of see this categorization of the attendees start to happen, right? Where you'd ask a question about like, okay, so how has the pandemic impacted you? And there'd be like that list of the folks that already had remote access, already had Citrix in place, and be like, yeah, we didn't really miss a beat. Yeah, we had a little trouble getting some more servers in, maybe some more endpoints. People had to grab their kids' devices, or if we were in the cloud, we just kind of added some more cloud capacity, no problem. And then the other group really kind of showing their pain and showing how difficult it was, and all of a sudden buying VPNs, and then you would see like the other half of the group going, why are you buying a bunch of VPNs? Like what that seems like not the greatest solution, right? So it kind of started that dialogue. And then to your point, it would then kind of ask us, okay, and certainly more in recent months, was saying, it looks like we're turning the corner on this. The vaccines are rolling out. Now what, right? What's going to happen in terms of how you're thinking about return to office, or are you thinking about return to office? Or even more scary is probably people may return to the office a little bit more versus all the way back in 100%. And so that means now you're dealing with, they're sometimes remote, they're sometimes in office. And that's where you kind of see the folks that were, had so ingrained themselves to think of, okay, Citrix is my remote access solution. But wait a second, and hybrid by nature means that sometimes I'll be remote, sometimes I'll be in office. Why not just have one solution that enables them to do both and transition back and forth? And it's still consistent, it's still the same kind of interface, still the same access methods. And then from a security standpoint, that's easier to deal with, because then effectively, that's the start of your zero trust model there, right there. You're always thinking that they're a remote user. So yeah, it's been a real interesting journey, and to kind of see people then start to catch up with this idea that Citrix isn't just for remote access, right? It's for anytime, anywhere, any device access, whether you're in the office or not, or in some kind of hybrid work mode.
Yeah, it's funny, and I intentionally said the remote access because that caught me by surprise a bit. It's been quite a while since I thought about Citrix as just being remote access. We take it for granted because we live this, and we go to the community of the people that have adopted these technologies for 20 years in some cases, and they were thought of that in my mind in the 90s. But I guess a lot of organizations did look to them for that.
Yeah.
Those that had not put a toe in the water of VDI or server-based computing until then. And it's
I could actually just share. Oh, sorry, just like a quick funny side note to that. But the markets and the investors also have that sort of old impression of Citrix, right? So if you were to kind of correlate, the dates of news about COVID and things like that over the past year with our stock price, you'd see certainly some cases where people were saying, okay, everyone's working from home. We go look for the work from home vendors, and Citrix certainly stood out there and skyrocketed. But every time there was news about, okay, maybe we're returning the corner, is there a vaccine out, right? And like people started thinking about the return to office and not so much remote access, you'd actually see our stock price dip, right? It would be like, okay, time to get out of Citrix now. But what's happened in the most recent months is I think even the markets are starting to catch up with that and realize, okay, it's not just for remote access. And so, when the vaccine started rolling out, we didn't see that same kind of dip, right? We were all kind of bracing ourselves for like, oh, is our stock price going to tank now that good news, we'll all be, inoculated, or many of us will. But what about our stock price? But it has actually kind of stabilized. So
yeah, you can see the dips, and then it flattens, and then it just stays higher most of the time, because I've tracked it over the years, and it's funny how there's a knee-jerk reaction, but then there's a longer-term reaction, and that's when that's when Citrix starts to look more like a blue chip in that way. Johnny, for the pandemic and work from home, do you have any war stories to tell where you helped arm up a customer?
Yes, had some interesting one where the customer had that hard time procuring hardware, right? So they couldn't buy more hypervisor hosts to stick in their data center to accommodate the influx of virtual desktops and virtual applications they need to deliver. So we kind of turned it around and said, we can't really do the mad dash where tomorrow we end up with 10 more hosts and hundreds of virtual desktops. But also at the same time, they weren't really allowed back into the building to claim the laptop or the desktop they had and bring it home and put a VPN client and those types of things. So the solution we kind of came up with at that time was remote PC, right? Install the VDA from Citrix onto the physical endpoint in the office and broker to it from a Chromebook or from a home PC or whatever it may be, and just get that same I'm on the network, but I'm doing work and doing those types of things that look and feel that they're used to, and making them successful to be able to do that.
I heard that too, and even though we worked together, I had not heard that from you, but I'd heard that there was a bump in remote PC, Calvin, and that's something that as a vendor that supports the Zen app, virtual apps and desktop side, that we don't really, I hadn't thought about in a long time. Were there a lot of licenses that went out that way?
There were, well, actually I should say, deployments or taking advantage of the entitlement. So one of the things that people realized was that it was actually in their premium entitlement or their.
You're making me aware of that too. So okay.
Yeah.
So if you're, if you're in the premium stack, the top tier stack of virtual apps and desktops, that's included. You can do that.
It's included. They had that capability, and it was something that we never really. I would say, we didn't do a lot of standalone marketing or awareness around. It was, it was another option that you could put out there, but so much attention was on VDI and on centralization, really, that remote PC was almost the opposite of that, right? It was, it's all the goodness of the HDX experience, but it wasn't the centralized control necessarily that people were looking to us for, but it was in there and people could do it. And we actually had several customers that just once they became aware of that, and even before COVID times, right? They just wanted it as sort of a business continuity option in cases it was like financials, right? And financials that had all of the scar tissue of having gone through 9/11 and the disruptions there, and snowstorms and Sandy and all those things that had happened there. So they actually just started baking in the VDA and the remote PC capability into their standard desktop image, so that if they needed to turn it on and flip a switch, they could do it. And a lot of that the client distribution would already be out there. But yes, we saw. Thanks Johnny for bringing that up, because we saw a huge bump in that. And precisely because of the hardware shortage and the logistics issues that happened there. I want to say it almost doubled or tripled in usage, or even more, based on what we can tell from our telemetry. And that was just even, our telemetry on sort of some of this on-prem stuff is limited. So we saw a tremendous increase. Also caused some quick innovation from the engineering teams, and where we built in the remote PC capability into what we call now our CVAD standard for Azure offering, so that there could be a quick to deploy, easy to stand up version of CVAD that could then connect in with a remote PC infrastructure and help broker those connections.
So transitioning the topic a little bit, but staying on topic, is I was speaking to a Birmingham-based Citrix user group. Actually, that was the last business trip I made in mid-March, and we didn't know if anyone was going to be there. I mean, that was the week of the lockdowns, March 12th, 13th, somewhere around there. And where it was state by state was starting to lock down. So we went, and it was actually well attended. And there were the bigger hospitals there present, and we just shifted the whole focus of the meeting to talking about what the heck are the customers going to do there in the room. So one theme began to emerge by many of the customers is, yes, we're adding Citrix licenses. For example, the hospital was about to send admin staff to work from home. Within the next 10 days, they said, we've been told we have to have it ready. He said, so there's no other way to do it except to host in the cloud. So can you speak about the interest that you saw there, and was that the direction a lot of people went when they decided they needed to burst scale or to scale up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll say this. I think the people that had at least gotten their toe in the water or in the cloud, so to speak, had started some of their motion and migration to the control plane there. They were feeling very lucky at that point, right? Because they had sort of a known quantity, and then they had the experience of having moved a lot of resource into the cloud, and started building up some of the operational capabilities to support that, right? So those that had started that transition were able to respond very quickly, and we saw cloud usage again go through quite an escalation through that, as well as the resource locations or where the workloads were running, leveraging cloud infrastructure escalated, right? So there's kind of two sides to that. There's both the Citrix control plane part of it, but then there was also the cloud infrastructure and the networking. I think there were definitely a class of customers that had not yet started any of their cloud journey and were kind of feeling behind the eight ball, and it was a lot more difficult for them, quite frankly. And we did everything we could, in terms of burst licensing and things like that, to enable them to expand their on-prem as much as they were able, given the hardware shortages and things that they saw. And in some of those cases, also trying to leverage cloud. The other thing that we saw was, new customers coming in, going straight to cloud and scaling very quickly. We saw a number of customers that did that in the several thousands of users, and it was almost easier for the new greenfield customer to come in and start in cloud versus trying to go through the migration and the learning and the sort of change of change management.
They had that discussion too. I remember it was like, no, this is going to be a separate deployment, and they're treating it greenfield to be able to get it up and running as quick as possible in the cloud. And that echoes what Johnny was saying too about the customer. You couldn't procure the hardware in time, and now we know it's harder than ever to procure hardware with the chip shortage in the industry. So
the healthcare one, I imagine, particularly at that early stage, must have been really interesting to sit down with them, right? I think I'm always struck by, when we get and we talk about remote working and things like that, the healthcare organizations, by and large, other than the administrative staff, right, they didn't have a choice. They many of them had to go in to work, and they couldn't do remote working. But what I did hear was that the folks that they were able to send home, particularly when there was a shortage in PPE and stuff like that, that was a big deal, because then they no longer had to burn through PPE for the administrative staff or for I think it was like radiologists, folks that didn't need to interact with a patient. They could just kind of study things, study the imagery and things like that, right? And that helped save PPE. So yeah, a lot of really interesting.
It was a point in time stories. I think I'll always remember in my career. It wasn't even the biggest. It wasn't even a big. It was well attended for that user group, but the conversation in the room, and you could tell that the uncertainty in the world, where we were sitting right there, and then we were grappling with, or helping them grapple with, real world challenges like they were facing that week. Usually like, we're planning, it's going to be a month out, maybe by the end of the year we'll get budget. They're like, no, this is the most important thing, and we just got budget. It was like, and it felt, it also felt good because we were in a position to help, and Citrix too. And I don't mean to belittle the whole pandemic thing. A lot of people suffered out of it. There's people that, you know, even there were deaths and family deaths, even friends and family that we know. But it was good to be in a position. Look, we can help with business continuity. We can help you face these challenges, so you don't have to shut down, so you don't have to send workers on furlough and things like that. So I have to be honest and say we had a sense of satisfaction, like this is what we developed our suite for, to help people onboard. And I imagine Citrix, you guys felt the same way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was gratifying to see the stories. It was sad that you know we had to go through what we did, but it was nice to know that you could be a part of the solution.
And the year of VDI, I guess we could say maybe finally happened. I don't know.
Yeah, after years of predicting this would be the year of VDI. Yeah.
At least it became a known thing by everybody. Ray, do we see any questions, or can we prod the audience to ask questions directly from us? It's not every day that you get to speak to the Vice President of Product Management for Citrix. Do you see any questions? Because I have one if you don't.
No, go ahead, Jason.
So we saw the acquisition. I read in the past week here that's one of the biggest business acquisitions in the United States to happen this year. Citrix acquired a company called Reiki, right? And make sure I'm pronouncing that right, because I wasn't a user and didn't even know how to spell it, but I understand they're a known entity and had a lot of customers out there.
Yeah.
Calvin, could you tell us more about the,
pronounced Reich.
Reich.
And yeah, you can keep the E silent. It was it was really fun to see that and have that close and be able to announce that. You know, I think the thing with Reich, and we do get questions like, because we're so known primarily as sort of an infrastructure player, right? Like, you know, we're in this, we got certainly the networking side of, you know, app delivery, controllers, and then in its own way, you know, the virtualization stuff is an infrastructure or as we're starting to call it now, sort of that system of delivery, right? We enable other things to get to where they need to be in order to affect business outcomes. And so one of the questions was like, okay, so but Reich is an actual application, right? That's something that actually users interact with. It is a set of work management tools. You know, I heard someone describe the other day, and I really like this analogy, that it's kind of like how you have Netflix is a delivery mechanism for all kinds of studios' content, but they have their own content as well, right? And it's their own content that helps them differentiate and helps drive adoption and you know, make it be sort of the reason that you kind of go to their streaming service versus any other, or you add them to your list of streaming services. In a way that sort of you know, maybe how to think of Reich, if you're a traditional Citrix follower and you're thinking, oh, why did they make this $2.2 billion acquisition? It is, you know, I think it's something that we certainly see in our scope in terms of where the future direction is and trying to help work happen, help make work productive, efficient, coordinated, collaborative. And this adds to the overall workspace vision for Citrix, a set of you know, tools you know, that are you can think of as our exclusive content into the workspace and helping drive you know, adoption and reach and you know, I think partners like you guys as well. You know, a reason to maybe discuss with not just the typical IT audience, but maybe, you know, more into the business. You know, what are you trying to do? What kind of employee engagement strategies do you have? And kind of look at the challenge of delivering a digital workspace experience from both angles, from the infrastructure side, but also from how do I adopt this? You know, what am I trying to do as an end user or as a line of business person?
Can you give us an idea how some organizations are using it? I think one of the public ones I read briefly was Walmart Canada, using it across the board to do many things a lot deeper than I thought. Because, you know, when I initially looked at it when the acquisition happened and couldn't pronounce it until today, right? you know, the one thing that stood out to me, oh, it's similar to Slack, but I don't think that's exactly the case. I think it probably goes beyond some areas. But could you give us an idea how organizations are using it?
Yeah, I mean, you could think of it as, I guess that the official term is really like workflow management or work management as a category, right? So where Slack is more of a free-form open communication tool, sometimes really free-form. You know, this is more about trying to structure that work, and it's, you know, project management tools. It's sort of, you know, collaborative updating. And I'll also preface, I'm not the expert in the product line or the field, but certainly, you know, representing what the strategy means for us. But you know, it's those type of capabilities where you're really trying to gather people around a mission and an objective, and keep everything on track, keep them the projects on time, and making sure that people you know their dependencies and things like that, right? So it's much more about that sort of output and outcomes than just communication.
Good. I'm excited to see more. Will it be a separate SKU, or are those discussions still happening versus premium, you know, premium, or maybe combined? Or
think of it as as you mentioned before, they've got a number of customers. It is its own business. Certainly, you know, adds to our presence as a SaaS company. But yeah, there are separate SKUs and their whole you know, lineup of SaaS and subscription offerings.
Yeah, they're based in San Jose, I guess, and you guys have an office right out there too, right?
Yep.
A major office.
Yep. Yeah. So location-wise, certainly that yeah, that works out well. One of the again, a quick aside. So one of the journeys that I've had here at Citrix over the 17 years is I got to work with the M&A team on some acquisition integration several years back. And it was completely different from everything else I'd done, but it's just sort of you know, I knew the organization. I could help some of these companies we were acquiring navigate and just, you know, find their way around in the first year or so. So I did it for like a year. But one of the things that we learned out of that was, you know, the companies that have the most successful acquisition strategies, they look for that sort of affinity location and being near sort of a major center. And what makes me think of that now is like, okay, everything's been kind of distributed and dispersed as a result of this past year. So I wonder if that's still the case, and maybe the secret to unlocking, you know, the results from an acquisition or from talent new hires is really going to be more about, can we effectively enable them to work remotely and disperse from each other and find talent and acquisition targets wherever they might be, rather than necessarily you know, right next to one of your main offices.
Right. I believe you were doing the M&A thing right before I met you. Can you tell us some of the things, maybe some of the projects you worked on there at Citrix that we know today that you helped bring into the group?
Yeah, at the time, the big ones were Zenprise and Byte Mobile. So those were two of the largest acquisitions we had done to that point, except for the ZenSource one since that time. And so yeah, that's what kind of caused that impetus of creating that little function there for about a year or so.
Neat. All right. Any questions, Ray, from the audience?
Well, I do see one here from Tim. He talked about, you know, the last year has all been about work from home. As we look into upcoming year, you know, there's a lot of talk about work from anywhere. You talk about that hybrid. Some people are still remote or remote part-time or whatever. What kind of challenges can we expect to see from that kind of environment versus what we had in the work from home that you guys were talking about?
Well, I think for our part at Liquidware, just to point to a comment Calvin made earlier, customers that already had our suite were better prepared for the work from, now we know, work from anywhere. I've even heard it called work from X, WFX lately. So we'll see which buzz terms stick. But some of our existing customers literally had us in place, and we got maybe 1 or 2 calls that they needed additional licenses, but they already had that methodology in place, log off of one place and log on to the next, or they had the flexibility of having Citrix and Liquidware already in place, so it was no big deal, work from home tomorrow. They didn't have to tell them anything else because this is the way they did business. I believe more and more organizations, so we saw that a lot of organizations just needed a quick fix last year, and maybe that was using the remote access, remote PC from Citrix, right? And that got them by for a set of months. But then people began to realize as this went on through late July and August that we need a better solution. And now that we're into this year, I believe that organizations that did what they could do to get by are giving another look to their desktop infrastructure, and we're starting to get those calls. Look, this is what we did last year, but we need a better solution going forward. And some of that has to do with the cloud, and the cloud making it your central computing area where everything's hosted there, and it makes it, even the thought process of, okay, it's in the cloud, you can get to it from anywhere you go. So we've seen growth of cloud, growth of interest in cloud, and more organizations that are looking to see if it is finally possible to host all their PCs in the cloud, from their knowledge, from their task workers all the way through to their knowledge workers and power users. So they're reevaluating what they did last year to get by, and they're wanting to put in place highly available desktops, because now they know, and we're reminded how uncertain everything is, to where a lot of the things that happened to them last year and the revenue loss that they may have had for 1 week, 2 weeks, or a month before they, as Johnny said, people couldn't even go in to get their laptops off their desk because some of them were just told, leave the building. A lot of organizations were that quick, leave the building. And then 2 weeks later, they're sitting at home doing, home improvement projects because they can't go to work. And they don't want that to happen anymore. So we're starting to get calls in that regard. But one thing that we've seen is that every project that we engage with has to also be able to realize a good return on investment. And now maybe that's easier than ever, because we can legitimately say, no longer will your staff have downtime if you adopt these technologies like Citrix and like Liquidware to cut them over quickly. So that's one way that we do that. And we embarked on a whole ROI project in about a year ago, because every organization said, we do have the budget we can spend, we've just got to show ROI, whether it's to get us through the pandemic or whether it's on an ongoing basis. So I believe listening in for the greatest technologies that you can adopt, just like you're doing today, is one way that you can prepare for the hybrid workforce and any changes that go forward. Adopting more cloud technologies and maybe a hybrid technology where you do have an on-prem, or at least you've got a fail-safe for the cloud where you can use those desktops in the event of a disaster, right, or man-made disaster or pandemic disaster, so you can always have the high availability in place. Johnny and Calvin, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe I'll say I'll kind of sum up my perspective on a lot of things that you mentioned there, Jason, and add something. So I think a lot of what you're talking about in the ROI and sort of that optimization of that environment is coming across to me as operationalizing this type of work, right? And so they're looking to things whether they're monitoring capabilities. Now that I've got to deal with so much more variety of networks. The internet is my corporate network now. Right? I've heard that phrase a lot. So how am I ensuring optimal experience, optimal performance? Certainly security, those things are all becoming top of mind. And it's really that sort of like, okay, this is not just occasionally people need to be remote access or they're shut down by a snowstorm. I need to have a plan for operationalizing this type of work, forever. I think that's one. The other thing that is coming up a lot more is the coming at it from the employee or the end user experience perspective, and having that sort of empathy for what that new work environment is like, because again, it's different than, okay, I'm going to work home from this Friday, so for whatever my kids reason or something like that. It is, my kids are always here, right? They're always making noise. I've got sure, I can be on this half-hour meeting, but then the rest of my day is broken up into 5 minutes to work on something, 10 minutes to make lunch, 20 minutes to go make a phone call, 5 minutes to help them, get started on their homework, or whatever that is. The sort of micro slices of the day are getting cut up, and so how do we influence the way work is getting done? Can we make it easier to get work done in bite-sized pieces rather than sort of long sessions sitting in front of an application? When I do go to get work done, how do I quickly find the action I need to take or the document I need to interact with, and not go funneling through a bunch of different applications or different document repositories, right? So all those sorts of challenges that we've been thinking about and trying to pull into the workspace are now becoming top of mind because the whole work experience is different.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. That is increasingly the challenge. It's ADD on steroids, working from
Absolutely.
home these days, right?
Yeah.
Social media in your face, and the news in your face, and the slice of home in your face, and you compound that with more ways to work, more ways to do business, more file shares that you're looking at, and anytime you can centralize that to one solid desktop, one solid storage point to go on about your day and not get distracted is a good thing.
Yeah, to talk real quick about security, right? There was the mad dash, everyone was doing their thing. How do we get from, as we said, doing home improvement projects to actually productivity? And, they may have let those security guidelines lapse. So now I see a lot more focusing on, okay, now we got to plug all those little security holes that we allowed for the last year, and then trying to figure out a way to be able to do that with, a product or a standard or a guideline or an operating procedure or whatever it may be. That's a lot of focusing on IT I've seen so far this, last 5-6 months.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, do you have a laptop at home? Do you have something, you can put the Citrix receiver on? And that's great. Then you can open it up, but now you're just one copy and paste away, or or screenshot away from a security hole. And that's where companies like iGel are coming into play, where you have in which we're both partners of iGel, with the PC on a stick, essentially is what it is. The iGel OS on a stick that it boots from. It's not the PC, but it boots from that, and then you're in a secure Linux environment, and the only thing you can get to is the approved browser and the approved Citrix receiver, for example. We can monitor those endpoints too, by the way. But yeah, we saw I believe too, we saw a huge lapse in security because of that. You're using any kind of PC just to get some kind of work done. And now people are circling back around to that if they can buy a PC, or if they can buy a new thin client or something like that. But the chip shortage is affecting all that entire market. We're seeing more organizations. We saw a major entertainment, hotel, casino chain speak to us lately about the possibility of reusing PCs that they had on pallets in the warehouse, thousands of them, to repurpose them as thin clients to get more and more users to work from home. And so we're able to assess those types of desktops with our Stratosphere solution. Are they capable? How are they configured today? So we can run that assessment really quick, and then send those from home. So you have a dedicated and secure machine to get into the office. So we're seeing, and so they came up with ways to get by, and that they're, that's just one data point again of another organization circling back around to make what they did to get by better and to work under the new normal going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see a few comments coming in, not so much questions, but let's go ahead and address a few of them. Donnie said the iGel UD Pocket is great indeed for home workers or suppliers. So just kind of reinforce what you were saying there, Jason. Also, Cindy says, Jason's point is well taken. We at the UCLA library are looking at a hybrid environment, remote and on-campus work, where Profile Unity will play a bigger role than it has in the past because users will be transitioning between laptops and different virtual and physical machines in the course of a new normal work week. So there you go. You know, people are starting to plan for that kind of stuff. And I see a question that did just pop in. It says, do Liquidware and Citrix see Microsoft Azure Virtual Desktop as a direct competitor?
We actually had this, we spoke 25 hours ago, and we said we need to speak about WVD. So that's a talking point we haven't spoken about. We're both, Citrix and Liquidware are partners with Microsoft for their WVD, Windows Virtual Desktop Platform. You know, it was initially known as RDMI, and we were early on partner with that, and they were initially interested in our Flex app solution, and then became interested in our entire suite, is helping customers transition from whatever they're on today to that. And you know, I can help answer some of that question, and I don't want to step on Calvin's toes, but WVD, there's two ways to run WVD. There's a native WVD, and so you can try to use what they put in place today, or you can run and use your WVD entitlements with something long proven in the industry, right, Calvin? And that's how Citrix is a partner.
Yeah, I was going to joke and be like, WVD, never heard of that. What is? No, but we get this question all the time, and you know, the way I look at it is this: it's yeah, is it a competitor? It competes for mind share, certainly, but at the same time, I think it has done an amazing thing for the industry in making people aware that this, you know, you can have virtual desktops and you can run them in the cloud, and you know, what are the use cases for them? You know, so if you think about pre-WVD, it was sort of, you know, I don't want to say not legitimate, but it was more legitimized by the release of WVD, that virtualizing a Windows desktop and hosting it somewhere remotely is a core way to do Windows, right? That was not something that Microsoft did a whole lot of talking about until the last couple of years. So the level of interest that they've created around it has been absolutely fantastic, and it's our responsibility as Citrix and as Liquidware to say, hey, you have this capability. What are your use cases that you're trying to apply this to? And then show people that we can make it operationally simpler. We can actually help save on the compute costs by optimizing how we're leveraging the backend compute versus the client compute. Leveraging things like our analytics or other management tools to kind of optimize the workloads and the usage of those Azure instances sitting underneath the WVD instance, or really the Windows 10, whether it's multi-session or dedicated or not. Getting that experience out to a variety of different devices and making sure that it works across the multitude of devices you want to have it on, the multitude of network locations, all those sorts of things. I think that's where on the surface of it, it might look like it's competitive, but it actually just creates a lot of opportunity for people to say, okay, how can I use this entitlement? What's the fastest way to get there, and how can I operationalize it at the best overall total cost, right? And that in a lot of ways, that's what we've been doing for 30 years, but it's never been more in the spotlight than it has been in the last year.
Right. So we're an Azure Migrate partner, and what that means is that we have a relationship with Microsoft to arm their field and to arm customers that are looking to adopt WVD or WVD entitlements on Citrix, and I'll explain again what that is in a moment. But we actually have a contract with Microsoft to offer you starter licenses for our entire suite. So you can make that request on our website if you're looking at WVD, and we can we'll have a meeting with you. We'll talk about a plan on assessing. Usually that's the first step, but you might want to talk to us about our application layering, our Profile Unity that works with the FS Logix technology, if you want to use the two together to give you full user environment management. So know that those licenses are in place. We have a landing page. If you simply Google or Bing, WVD, and Liquidware, you'll end up on those pages and you'll see those links to and a form on how you can engage with us and get the licenses that we're providing under contract with Microsoft to get you started on that path to WVD or WVD entitlements on Citrix. And so we've been involved in several WVD projects, but we call them all WVD. And in reality, what we're finding out once we get engaged with the project is that many of those are enterprises that are used to the maturity of the Citrix control plane. They're used to the bells and the whistles. They're used to all those things that may not be in WVD yet for their control plane, quite honestly. And when I speak about the enterprises, those are the ones that are adopting it at a large scale and that really matter, right? Yep. And that's the core market that we're in. That's the core market that Citrix is in. And WVD native still has traction and is getting traction, quite honestly. But we see a lot, I believe, more interest in the method of using your WVD entitlements, such as Windows Windows Multi-Session 10 with Citrix, with the Citrix control plane and you have to run that on Azure, right, to get those double WVD entitlements. I believe that's still the case, right? There's no on-prem option. There was some talk of maybe an on-prem option, but you still have to host it only on Azure. That's the only cloud that you can have it on. I believe I still have all that right. Do you guys agree?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, for the Win10 multi-session capability.
Yes. Yeah, and I think there's some other entitlements under there, but quite honestly, like FSLogix, that was one of the entitlements, but you can get FSLogix if you're on any kind of Microsoft license now. It's making a profile stick, an unmanaged profile for the most part stick on Windows. And that's where our Profile Unity complements that. It runs after FSLogix, gives you full profile and user environment management capabilities with context awareness. It goes across all versions of supported Windows. So if you are an on-prem Citrix customer looking at going to Azure Cloud and using your WVD entitlements, and you've been running Windows 7, and believe it or not, there's a lot of them still out there, you can do that. You can shift those workloads over to Citrix on Azure and use your WVD entitlements on Windows 10. You get a couple of great things out of that. We can bridge that. Even if you were using FSLogix here and there, we'll bridge those different OSs, but you also no longer have to pay the Windows 7 support tax because a WVD entitlement, another one is to run Windows 7 on Azure. If you're running on Azure, essentially you get that support too. So that's another entitlement I just remembered.
Yeah, that's a real key point, is that hybrid deployment model is, particularly with not even, I would say, enterprise, any sort of mid-sized company and up, right? If you have a data center, you're doing anything with it, you may be adopting a bunch of Azure, but chances are there's some kind of hybrid model in play, and that's really where Liquidware and Citrix, that's sort of the number one discussion that I end up having with you folks, is say, well, should I just do WVD? Why Citrix instead? Well, are you doing, what do you think is your hybrid cloud strategy going to be? Are you going to be all cloud 100% forever? And that usually stops the conversation right there. No, I'm not. So, okay, well then how are you going to manage this across on-prem and cloud, and how are you going to ensure a consistent experience and so on? Yeah,
if you're considering it mid-market, and I do agree with that. And sometimes we just lump that in with enterprise by our definition, right? And it's not your enterprise definition is a little grandiose than ours. While we have customers in the 100,000, we like to see anything from 1,000 and up, which you wouldn't consider. We also call that mid-market, depending on who you're speaking to over here. But I agree with that. I would encourage you to see a native WVD demo, or to if one of your staff members are versed with it, or if one of your partners are, let them show you, and you'll see a night and day difference already, with the Citrix control plane and what you're used to, and that will probably make your decision for you.
Yeah, just the way that image management is a very large piece comparison there that Citrix adds the value to, right? If you're a long established Citrix shop and you're doing image management your way, just having that with WVD and having it managed together in that manner, you use the same principles you use for that on-prem for when you're out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very large one.
Microsoft really cares that you're hosted on Azure, obviously, because that's the requirement. They love it if you're a Citrix customer too. So we're not saying anything that would
Yep.
upset our main partner there for both of us. I know.
No, absolutely. We help them scale on Azure. That's all goodness as far as they're concerned.
That's right. We're starting to wind up to the hour. Sometimes I say the top of the hour. We started at the half hour today for the official conversation. Ray, you see any outstanding thoughts?
I don't see any outstanding thoughts, but we'll give people an opportunity to ask a few more. But while we're allowing people to do that, we can go ahead and announce our winner for that Yeti Bluetooth package. And our winner today is Rob Griffith. So congratulations, Rob. I'll be in touch with you to get your mailing information so we can get that prize out to you. So congratulations, Rob. Just a reminder to anyone, you can still ask your questions as we go to kind of wrap this up. So everybody that came on today, if you're looking for more resources or maybe even a copy of this recording, we push this out on our community site, which is community.liquidware.com. It's a great way to kind of carry on this conversation. It's built by our users, our experts, our staffers out there as well. So it's a great way to go out there, look for questions, post your questions, your thoughts, things like that, and share with the community and get answers out there. It's just another way of interacting with people as well. So check that out. If obviously for more information on either the Liquidware or the Citrix solutions, go to our websites. You can email us at unplugged at liquidware.com. We'll make sure we forward on any emails that might be for Citrix or anyone else out there, and we'll address that. We also encourage you guys to give shout outs both to Liquidware on social media and at Citrix on social media as well. So.
Yeah, I'll be glad to give you a follow from the Liquidware account later today. If you give us a follow or give us a shout out, we'd appreciate that. We're also running a contest, right, to raise our awareness of FlexApp, which we focus on applications only. And people ask, do you overlap with Citrix app layering? Yeah, a little bit, but they focus on image management as well. We make our applications dynamic and stuff. So we're raising the awareness of FlexApp. And if you do an original tweet or social media post with the hashtag #WinWithFlexApp, you will automatically be considered for a $100 Amazon gift card that we're giving away every Friday. I believe we've got a few of those Fridays left, and you want to make sure you get friends to share and retweet that, and because that's the number we go off of. If you make it go viral to any degree, that gets you in the running, and that the highest number of shares or retweets is what has you win that. So think about that, and you'll see the rules to that if you look. Win with FlexApp.
Are partners like Citrix eligible?
You're eligible, I think.
Because I'm buying a lot of stuff from Amazon these days.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, is that in the rules? I don't remember the rules that we wrote.
I believe the rules only state that people like Johnny, Jason, and I, who work for Liquidware, are not available for that. So
right.
Tweet away, Calvin. Tweet away.
Tweet away. I would love Calvin to tweet Win with FlexApp.
There you go. So there's not a question per se. Well, there is a question. Jimmy says, no questions at this time other than how many guitars does Calvin actually own?
Yeah, we don't see the end of them there, do we?
Let's see.
Oh, they do keep going. Look at
Yeah.
And there's others that I keep hidden away in other places so they don't draw even more attention to how many I've got.
Oh, nice. Do you
Awesome.
Are they named Lucille or anything?
No. There's the green dragon there. That's one, but
The green dragon. Love that.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Well, listen, as we kind of wrap this up, we're winding down to the top of the hour. Thank you to Calvin, Johnny, Jason, everyone for joining us today. Anyone else, we did record the session, so keep an eye on that community website, community.liquidware.com, for a link to that recording. We'll be posting it there as well as probably send out a follow-up email as well. If you have any other questions for any of us, please reach out to us, unplugged at liquidware.com. We'll make sure we get your questions or comments brought out to the right groups and kind of go from there. So.
Right. Thanks so
Fantastic.
much, Calvin, for joining us. Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was a
It's
lot
been
of
a
fun.
great Unplugged session. We look forward to. So it'll also be online. We'll host it online so people can watch it on YouTube later.
Sounds great.
Right.
Excellent. Have a good
Take
one.
care. Stay safe.
Thank you. We'll talk to
Stay
you guys
safe.
later.
Bye.